If you're just getting started with embroidery, the first thing you need to know is what materials do you need and how to get started. So we're going to go over that. This is my fabric. I just picked up a cotton. You're going to need an embroidery hoop to keep your stuff stable. This is your embroidery floss. It comes in so many colors. You'll definitely want some scissors. This pen is great if you want to draw a design because it is heat soluble. It even goes away with like a hair dryer, not even just an iron. And then you're obviously going to need some needles. I have several different kinds here. The ones that have the bigger eyes are always easier to use to thread, but these bobbins here too, these are great for putting your floss on them once it starts to get all tangled. Here's one that I already have done. So stick around to master the basics that you're going to need for every stitch. To get started, the first thing I'm going to do is prep my fabric into my hoop. Now again, I'm just using a quilter's cotton that I had lying around. Actually, this was pre-cut for a quilt that I didn't make. But your hoop comes in two pieces, an inner ring and an outer ring. Now this one's plastic. They do come in wooden and all different sizes. But lay your fabric down over top of the inner hoop and then secure the outer hoop around the inner hoop. They should kind of lock together or fit together. This plastic one locks together. And then pull your fabric in it nice and taut. Then you can take the screw that comes with the hoop and tighten it up so that your fabric doesn't shift around and your hoop is holding everything nice and tight for your project. Now let's get started with your embroidery floss. This is the whole length of it, wrapped up, tied up with a piece of paper, and you're going to grab the piece that hangs loose. Go ahead and pull that. A lot of people suggest pulling it from the numbered end. Just make sure you're pulling it and it's not getting stuck. Once you've pulled out about an arm or a forearm's length, whatever you're going to need, go ahead and cut this away from the rest of the floss. Now this is one piece and it actually is separated into 6 individual strands. So what I want to do is go ahead and separate this into something that's better for my project. Most projects won't use 6 strands unless it's a big item. So I'm separating into 3 and 3. I like to put it into 2 and then put my finger in the middle and kind of very easily work my finger down the length of the floss. This is going to separate it out. You can see it starts to twist a little bit. I just run my fingers through it again to try to smooth it out. And now I've got 2 sets of 3 strands that I can use for my project to make it more detailed or use for smaller items. So the next part we're going to talk about is what we do to get it started. So you're going to have to thread your needle. There are so many different kinds of embroidery needles available. Different lengths, different sizes of the eye of the needle. Someone once recommended the chenille needles. I really like these because they have a bigger eye and it's the one that I use most. So now you're going to get your thread. The end of it is a little bit messy here because we split it apart. So I'm going to cut it so that it's a little bit more even and all the thread is the same length. Now we're going to thread the needle. If you have one of these, which is a needle threader, this can be a lifesaver for you. If you don't have one of these needle threaders, then that's okay. You can just thread it manually. But the needle threader has this little metal piece that sticks out, this very small wire. Your thread's going to go inside of it, and you'll be able to pull that through your needle. So first put your needle threader into the eye of the needle with no thread in it. And then once the needle threader is through the needle, you're going to put your thread through the needle threader and then pull it through. This is without a doubt one of the easiest ways to thread a needle to get started. But if you don't have one, again, you can just do it by hand and I will show you that as well. The pink thread I was using might be too hard to see for this, so I'm going to switch over to this darker red. I'm just going to pull out an arm's length and cut it and then split it into 3 and 3 from the 6 original strands. So now you can see I have it pinched in between my fingers. I typically get the end of the thread damp, like put it in my mouth, but then I force the needle over top of it while I pinch it between my fingertips. So you can also do this method if you don't have a needle threader. This one is fine as well. But I'm not going to lie, it can be difficult sometimes. Just be patient. So now that my needle is threaded with my floss, I've got a tail piece hanging out of the needle and then the long end, and I'm going to show you how to tie the knot. I'm going to go over 2 methods to tie the knot. The first one is going to be just a simple knot at the end. So grab the end of your thread, wrap it around your fingers, and just pull it through, just like you're tying a regular single knot. The fewer strands of floss you're using, I would recommend that you tie more than 1 knot, so a double knot or a triple knot, just to make that knot bigger so it doesn't fall through your fabric. There is nothing fancy about this. It is just a simple, easy knot to put at the end of your string. We're going to go over the second option now, and the second one is called a quilter's knot. It is also pretty easy, but may take more practice. We're going to use our pink string for this one, since we have a second needle threaded. And so for this, what you're going to do is take the end of the thread, the long end, and you're going to bring it up to meet the needle. Press it against the needle and hold it with your hand that's holding the needle. So press the tail end there and wrap it 3 or 4 times I think 3 typically is standard for a quilter's knot. And then pinch all of those wraps that you did as well as the end and slide your needle through, bringing the knot all the way to the bottom. So it's going to secure a knot at the end. Again, this is called a quilter's knot. You can practice one and see if you like it better than the other one. Either knot will work to secure your string and get started. After I have my knot secured, I like to cut off the little tiny bit below the knot just so that it won't get caught in any of my stitches at the back of my project. So cutting this off will ensure that you don't have any long pieces that get stuck in any of the stitches that you do. Now that your floss is separated and your needle is threaded, we're going to go ahead and get started on our project. This is the heat-soluble pen I mentioned earlier. You can use it to draw out what you want to do to draw out your shape. For instance, if you want to do a zigzag line or something, you can draw that out. If you're practicing any of the stitches that I do in my tutorials, you can draw that out. For this, I'm just going to draw a straight line because we're going to do a standard backstitch. I'm going to use my darker thread here so that it'll show up better for you on camera. I'm going to stitch my back stitch real quick. If you're not familiar with this, hop on over to my shorts and check out the tutorial that I have posted. This is a great basic stitch for all beginners to know because it's used in so many projects. Now that I've reached the end of my stitch, I'm going to turn my hoop over so you can see the back of the fabric and see what the stitch looks like on the back. I'm going to show you how to secure your knot. This is going to be similar for most stitches, but I take my needle underneath one of the last stitches that I did, just once, no action there, just pull it under. Then take it under a second time under the same area so it creates a loop, and then I put my needle through that loop there and I'm going to pull a knot. There are other ways to secure your thread on the back of your project, such as burying your thread or maybe other knots, but this is a great one to get you started. We can cover other ones in future videos, but this is the one I use the most. Then go ahead and snip off the excess floss. I was struggling here trying to hold it in one hand and cut it with the other with my scissors angled the way they were, so I had to put it down. But just cut off your extra floss and then your stitch is all done. Here's the back of my stitch so you can see what it looks like once I've cut all the floss off. And the last tip I'm going to give you is regarding your floss. Eventually, you're going to end up with some that looks like this, where the papers have come off and you've got this just jumbled mess that you've been pulling from. And it's important at this point that you kind of figure out what to do before you end up with everything in knots. So I'm pulling out all the junk, extra string that was stuck in here, and I'm going to go ahead and find the end of this. And this is what I'm going to use my plastic bobbin for. These are great for organizing your floss and keeping your colors handy so you know what you need. The plastic bobbin has these 2 notches at the top, and you're going to put the thread through one of those and holding it against the side of the bobbin, and then just start wrapping. If you hit a knot, don't pull too hard. Nothing is truly really knotted in there usually, so you just need to be patient working the tangle out. Once all your floss is wrapped around the bobbin, you can secure the loose end in one of the notches at the bobbin where we had started. This will just keep it nice and tidy for when you need it next time. My other pro tip is that each of the floss come with a number associated with it, and you'll want to remember that number in case you're in the middle of a project and you run out and you need to go back to the store to get the same floss color. That way you can just quickly grab the color you need to finish your project. I recommend that you use a marker and you write on the plastic bobbin the number of that color floss so you'll have it handy. And that's it. The embroidery basics that you'll use for every stitch that you learn. If you found this helpful, give it a like so more beginners can find it too, and don't forget to subscribe to Catherine's Crafts for simple beginner-friendly tutorials. Thanks for watching.